Hi everyone, I'm Grace from 7X Ventures, and super happy to attend the Hot Tech series again. And this time we have Dennis from Zeta Chain to talk about the unification and the bridging ecosystem. And before we start, would love to know more about Zeta Chain from your perspective and also your personal experience, for the audience to know more.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. So Zeta Chain is an EVM compatible L1 focused on interoperability between blockchains. So what this means is it provides a platform for developers to deploy contracts that can be accessed from any connected chain, which is super powerful. And we support chains like Ethereum, BSC, and notably Bitcoin. So this opens a lot of interesting opportunities for Bitcoin users to engage in DeFi natively. And I'm going to talk what I mean by natively, I guess, later. But yeah, we realize that with the number of chains that we have, we need to come up with better tooling for developers and just generally a better architecture for applications to be able to be omnipresent on all the chains that are out there. We launched just a few months ago, but yeah, we're seeing huge growth.
Got it. Can you give us a very concrete example? For example, I want to bridge from Polygon to Bitcoin, and what's the process underneath?
Absolutely. So we don't even call this bridging because we think bridging is a bit of a problem actually that we're trying to solve. So for example, Bitcoin has a huge market cap, right? But only 0.9% is wrapped Bitcoin. And what is the reason for that? Definitely not because Bitcoin users don't want to participate in DeFi or put their BTC into different dApps, but rather because the UX of this is terrible. So let's consider the flow, right? Let's say I wanna put BTC into some dApp. I need to issue a transaction on Bitcoin to put BTC into a bridging contract. Then I will get wrap BTC on Ethereum. I need to have an Ethereum wallet with some ETH to put it in a contract, and I need to actually know how to use Ethereum, which for Bitcoin users, right, that might not be that obvious. And I need to go back the other way, the same way, right? So from UX point of view, it's a nightmare, especially because you need to worry about gas. That's also a problem. So with Zeta Chain, for example, let's say I have Bitcoin and I need to send you some USDC on Ethereum. I don't have any tokens other than BTC. So what I do is I issue a token transfer transaction in Bitcoin, put some data in the memo that describes my intent, and everything else is taken care of by the protocol and by the contract that does the swapping, right? So we provide the mechanism, the platform for this to happen, but it's up to the contract to actually implement the logic. In this case, that would be a cross-chain swap logic or omni-chain swap logic that will take BTC as input, swap it for a different asset, in this case USDC, and withdraw it to recipient address on Ethereum. What this means from users' point of view is that they just issued a single token transfer transaction on Bitcoin, and that was it. They don't need to have ETH on Ethereum. They don't need to know about Zeta Chain. They don't need to know much about Ethereum either. So this, to us, that's how chain abstraction looks, right? You enable users to use these contracts from any chain they want and basically perform any action that they want through the chain that they prefer.
Got it. And underneath, throughout the process, underneath Zeta Chain, what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the way it works is Zeta Chain is a Cosmos SDK based Comet BFT instant finality chain proof of stake. We have validators that observe other blockchains, and through MPC TSS mechanism, they sign transactions on behalf of the protocol. So we have Zeta Chain has addresses on all chains. It's not a contract. It's just a regular address owned by validators of Zeta Chain. And when you want to deposit Bitcoin, for example, or any other token into a contract on Zeta Chain and into an Omni-chain contract, you just send tokens to this TSS address, and you specify the Omni-chain contract address as well as the message that you want to pass to the contract in the memo. If you're doing the same from Ethereum, the process is pretty much the same, except instead of the memo, you're using input data, and observer validators of Zeta Chain recognize this token transfer. They parse the first 20 bytes, and they pass the message to this contract. And there are wrapped assets during the process of this transaction, but for many cross-chain operations, these wrapped assets are actually ephemeral. They're not something that the end user has to ever deal with. So Bitcoin has a representation on Zeta Chain called ZRC20 Bitcoin, right? And it's swapped for ZRC20 USDC. But it happens within a single block, so the user really doesn't need to deal with that ever, right? So what they see is they see native Bitcoin transfer, and native USDC coming out on the other side. And of course, it's not just for swaps. It's just an easy example. You can do staking. You can deploy a game that can, by default, accept any token as input. So it's really powerful. And I think, honestly, any application that is currently deployed on any EVM chain can benefit from deploying on Zeta Chain. Because if you deploy to, I don't know, Binance Smart Chain, you only get users from that blockchain. If you deploy the same contract on Zeta Chain, you get users from all the connected chains.
Got it. But like, I think it's good, like, they abstract away all the complexity for user. But I also curious, like, will the requirements for the validator be quite high? Because like, they might need to validate different chains.
Yeah, we have two types of validators. One is core validator and the regular Cosmos validator. You just run Zeta Chain node and that's it. So there's no much overhead there. The other type is observer signer validators, and right now we have a limited set of those. We're in this mainnet beta stage as a blockchain, and so we're growing gradually. Instead of just allowing users to deposit arbitrary amount of tokens, we want to kind of scale gradually to ensure that the security of the chain matches the amount of tokens, the value that gets deposited, so the tokens are always secure. So we're going to be growing this set of validators and making this more permissionless. But yeah, right now they're required to stake a large amount of Zeta tokens so that they have stake in the game, and that they don't behave in a malicious manner. But yeah, over time we're gonna add more mechanisms to reward and slash them, these validators, and make the process more open. Maybe that will happen through governance, like the governance decides which validator is eligible to become a signer validator, or it might be just based on the stake, right? If they stake a large amount, then they're qualified, and if they misbehave, we slash the stake. So yeah, we're in this kind of, even though we're launched mainnet, we're still evolving all the mechanisms, including this one. And of course, we're also looking into a scenario where anyone can be an observer. So there are a lot of interesting approaches there as well to make this part more permissionless. So probably signers will still be in this set approved by governance, but observers, we can be more open to other entities observing and reporting data back to Zeta Chain.
Got it. And it's interesting though that like Zeta Chain is a Cosmos chain. So kind of curious, like why choose Cosmos at the first place, and like what's the advantage of using a Cosmos chain? Because there are also like other projects that might use a rollup architecture or something. So really curious about your thoughts about that.
Well, Cosmos is great. I mean, I'm biased towards Cosmos. I've been in the ecosystem since 2019, so I just think it's a great ecosystem with the best tooling, and it is very flexible. We wanted to build a chain because we wanted to ensure that we have control over every part of the stack. So if we want to change something, we are able to. With many other solutions, that's not the case. We also wanted to, I think, being able to enable IBC at some point when we're ready is also very powerful, because there's like over 70 plus, however many IBC chains, and once we enable IBC and make that compatible, I think that's going to be very powerful, because aside from the chains that we're connecting through Zeta Chain's interoperability that cannot be connected through IBC, like Bitcoin, right? You can't really connect IBC through Bitcoin through IBC. You might not even want to connect Ethereum through IBC, to be honest. I know there are different approaches to that, because for IBC, you need to have a light client on the chain. You need to execute logic on the chain. That becomes a bit too expensive. With just having a single address makes it much more cost effective to send ETH back and forth. So for Ethereum, I think this approach could be the approach that Zeta Chain takes is a bit more efficient. But yeah, just this flexibility, being able to process transactions fast, instant finality, all these things make this choice a no-brainer.
Yeah, I heard a lot of like good benefits of using a Zeta Chain, and just curious, like if you have to pick one, like for example, people care about different metrics about the liquidity unification, like the chains it connected to, or like the security, or like the scalability. Like which part do you think Zeta Chain is best for that?
Oh well, that's interoperability for sure. So I think being fast is great, being efficient is great, but we're very very close to this multi-chain future where we have hundreds and thousands of blockchains. So I think if I had to choose, I would prioritize being interoperable. Just because, like, which chain do you deploy to? Do you deploy to all of them and like manage hundreds of contracts sending messages back and forth? Well, that's not great. And you have to choose an architecture that is future-proof, and that's exactly what we're building, making sure that we provide a platform for developers where they can just deploy a contract and it's connected to a bunch of chains already, and it's going to be automatically connected to the future chains we add to the ecosystem.
Got it. Yeah, I think we have like kind of walked through Zeta Chain architecture and the features. Like next part, we'd love to discuss about the landscape problem. Like how do you envision currently the liquidity unification landscape? Because there are many new solutions popping up, like ZK verification layer or like some optimistic way. So curious about how you like will categorize this landscape.
Yeah, so I think all these are different tools. We are also looking into ZK for scaling our solution, right? So I don't believe that there's going to be just one protocol, one solution to rule them all. Like that's not going to happen. We just need to build more connectors between chains and between ecosystems, right? There is Cosmos that is very well interconnected internally. There's Polkadot, right? And it has its own system, which nobody's going to switch to IBC in the Polkadot ecosystem, right? They have their own thing, but Polkadot is being connected to Cosmos through IBC. So we're going to be connected to Cosmos through IBC, and this way we'll connect Bitcoin to the Cosmos ecosystem as well. So I think we're going to have more and more solutions like this, and I'm sure that on Zeta Chain, other interoperability solutions will be deployed as well, which is perfectly fine, right? We want competition, and we want the more interconnected the things are, the better the flow of value and data is between blockchains. So I think, yeah, everyone's just trying their own thing, and we're just gonna see which one works best and which ones survive. I don't believe that there's gonna be just one protocol.
Yeah, that's true. Like I think different solutions have different trade-offs, and like users will have different preference for different solutions. Yeah, and I just noticed like our this fireside is titled "Unify Liquidity Users and Data." So also curious like how Zeta Chain is related to all these three aspects.
So we see this as a problem that different chains have like their own liquidity pools, and it's okay. But with Zeta Chain, what happens is you actually have liquidity pools that can be reused by applications from different blockchains, which I think is really powerful, right? So you don't need to go to a different chain to swap there and go to a different chain swap there. Like all the pools from with all the tokens from all the connected chains exist on Zeta Chain, and this kind of unified liquidity experience, I think, also makes it much more efficient because you can just have a pool on Zeta Chain and any user from any chain can reuse the same pools.
Got it. And also, it's a Avios event. Also, like how DA can fit into Zeta Chain. Are there any possibilities and brainstorming right now?
Yeah, that's one more advantage that we're built on Cosmos. We can always like add, replace different parts of the stack. Right now, we're our own sovereign Comet BFT based own validator set type of chain, but we can always look into other options. For example, the way Celestia is doing, right? They're making it super easy to kind of swap your existing consensus part of your stack for their own version of the consensus that is powered by their DA. Currently, I don't think we're at a stage where this is super important for us. I think we can look into that more as we scale. Right now, we're processing about 200 to 300 transactions per block with 5-second block time, and the amount of data is pretty big. But yeah, just kind of being able to swap parts of your stack for other more scalable options in the future, I think is really powerful. As for what DA enables to kind of like we have projects like Dimension, for example, that allow easy they facilitate spinning new rollups, right, based on their system. I think it's very well aligned with what Zeta Chain is doing because the way we see it, every rollup is essentially their own chain. Doesn't matter if they're sovereign or not. Like it's a separate chain for all intents and purposes, right? So, and they need connectivity with other rollups, which might be handled by the system that launched them, but they also want connectivity to Ethereum. They want a connectivity to Bitcoin, and that's what we provide. So yeah, just having more chains, I think, is generally a great idea. It doesn't matter if they're sovereign or not. We're just to help to connect all of them, no matter which technology stack they're built on top of.
What kind of chains and rollups that we have already supported right now? You mentioned Bitcoin. Is also sovereign rollups also ready?
Yeah, so we just launched, so we're kind of focusing primarily on features. We currently have Ethereum, BSC, Bitcoin on mainnet. We also have Polygon on testnet, and adding new EVM chains is relatively easy because we don't even need to deploy contracts to them. It's just a matter of changing some parameters on chain, and we can add more chains. We're a bit limited by the liquidity caps we're setting because we don't want to grow exponentially. We want to be responsible that way. So, so yeah, I think once we have once we grow a bit more, we'll be able to add more chains once we feel more kind of confident.
Right. Also, like recently, people talk about chain abstraction, and before, like there are also a word called intents. I'm just curious, what's your opinion on these two terms that coming up recently?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're doing. We're literally doing chain abstraction. We're doing it differently than some other projects. For example, in other projects, you might need to sign up for their account to use their chain abstraction solutions. We think that it's a bit too limiting because you can't really tell a Bitcoin user, yeah, please sign up for this chain's account. Like they don't care about your chain. We do it differently. We kind of build this around the needs of end users. So if they want to use just Bitcoin, like that's all they know, that's all they care about, they can do that and not care about other blockchains. That's perfectly fine. So yeah, chain abstraction is exactly what we're doing, and in some ways intense as well. Though to be fair, like it's very vague to me what intents are. To me, when applied to Zeta Chain, the way I would describe intents is you have you have a user on Bitcoin, they have BTC, and they send a memo, and in the memo they say, I want to stake my Bitcoin, and I want rewards to be higher than 2%. And this gets routed to a contract on Zeta Chain, and then the contract intelligently finds the right chain to stake their Bitcoin on. So that looks like intents to me. We support it already. It's just a matter of you writing a contract that can intelligently decide what the user means by this and do the right thing. So yeah, I think the chain abstraction narrative is very strong, purely because the UX that we currently have is lagging behind what end users actually expect from blockchain, and I think we're very well positioned to solve that.
Yeah, I agree. I think chain extraction and intent are making user experience better, and really exciting to witness Zeta Chain solving this problem. But also at the end of this talk, we also love to hear about some risks, like what's the risk behind Zeta Chain and what's Zeta Chain's solution to that.
Sure. So the risks, I think, are dependent on the type of operations you're executing. So with wrapped assets, the risks in general are that you depend on the path that the asset took when being wrapped. So for example, with IBC, right, it's also kind of a bridge because you're locking tokens on one side, you're minting vouchers on the other side. If you send them again, you are dependent on the path that you took. So that's a risk. If the chain on this path goes out of business, where you're in trouble, you can't reroute these assets through a different path. They're going to become different assets at this point because the risk properties change when you bridge them. So we want to focus on native assets first. So in this example where I sent BTC, I converted BTC into USDC and sent it to you on Ethereum. You depend very little on Zeta Chain because you only depend on it during the execution of this process. If you have a dApp that locks BTC, for example, or any other token, mints NFTs, and it's like a long-running process, and the interactions are more than one block, then of course you depend on the security of Zeta Chain, and it's up to us to ensure that the security of the chain grows proportionally to the amount of assets willing to be locked on this chain. And yeah, we're looking into other options. So again, it's pretty cool that we're free to kind of choose the security parameters of our chain. We can right now we're fully sovereign, but adding existing restaking solutions to secure the chain could be an interesting path to increase the security, overall security of the network. And I think it's also great that we're using governance, right? So the community can decide. It's not going to be just like the core team or whoever is in charge, right? Nobody's in charge. There's a community of stakers, and they can just propose, yeah, we want to look into this mesh security thing to increase the security of the network. Why not, right? So and in Cosmos, the governance is notably very active to a point where it's too. I mean, you can argue it's too active. Just a lot of discussions going on, a lot of drama. But I think that's super useful because through this process you you decide the future of the chain. And
Got it. Yeah, I think that's kind of all the questions today. And like, I think at the end of this fireside chat, are there any exciting upcoming news or like product updates or collaboration about Zeta Chain that you would love to share?
yeah, so we're gonna be adding messaging to and from Zeta Chain. So right now it's possible to message between EVM chains, and I think adding messaging to and from Zeta Chain is gonna add superpowers to what is already a pretty sophisticated system. So you'd be able to deposit BTC into a contract on Zeta Chain, then send a message to Ethereum, do something there, then return back, then possibly go to a different chain, then return back, then go back to Bitcoin, all in one transaction. Right? It's all triggered in one transaction. So this is coming in May. I'm very excited about that. I think it's gonna kind of bring us much closer to the chain abstraction idea that we're implementing. So yeah, looking forward to that. We're gonna be. I don't think we have any events in May, but we're definitely gonna be in Seoul in June. So if anyone is in Seoul, let me know. We can meet up there. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all for today. For this fireside chat. Thank you.
Thank you.